Rhaenyra is sitting on the Iron Throne, 2 episodes into Season 3, and the thing she has been fighting for since Episode 1 is done. So, is the war over? No, not even close. And if you look at the board right now, you'll see why. Yes, the Blacks hold King's Landing. But Aegon is still alive, and he's on the road to Rook's Rest. Aemon just took Harrenhal, and he's wounded, alone with Alice Rivers, which might be worse than any battle. Criston Cole is still marching with an army. The Triarchy is raiding the coast. And inside the Red Keep, Rhaenyra just took Otto Hightower's head, with Alicent watching. That's not a loose end that got cut. That's a new enemy she just made, and this enemy lives under her own roof. And the Black side has problems of its own. Jace is dead. Corlys barely survived the gullet. Rhaena has a dragon now, but the Veil just turned her away, and Rhaenyra doesn't even know she was the mystery rider. So in this video, we're going to go through the entire map before Episode 3 drops. Every region, every army, every dragon and rider still alive, Blacks versus Greens, side by side. By the end, you'll know exactly who is actually winning this war. And it's not who you think. Let's start in King's Landing. The capital fell without a real battle, and that's the strangest part of this whole episode. Think about how it happened. Alicent decided to hand the city over. She went to the Gold Cloaks herself and told their commander that Queen Helaena wanted the soldiers to stand down and let Rhaenyra land. That was a lie. Helaena gave no such order. But it worked. When the dragons came, no one fired a single bolt. The King's Guard laid down their swords in the throne room. The Gold Cloaks, many of them still loyal to Daemon from his old days as their commander, rounded up the Green Loyalists and marched them down to the Black Cells. And in those Black Cells, Daemon found a gift, Otto Hightower. Locked up and waiting, courtesy of Larys Strong, who betrayed his own side on the way out of the city. Then came the moment the whole episode was building to. Rhaenyra walked up those steps and sat on the Iron Throne, leaving bloody footprints behind her. The throne cut her. But it did not reject her, and if you want the full breakdown of that scene and what it means, I made a whole video about it. Link is in the description. But here's the thing, she didn't stop at sitting on the throne. Before the episode ended, Otto Hightower lost his head. The man who spent decades scheming to put his grandson on the throne, executed by the queen he tried to erase. And Alicent watched her father die. Now put yourself in Alicent's place for a second. She handed Rhaenyra the city. She lied to the Gold Cloaks. She took an enormous risk, maybe for peace, maybe for her own reasons. And what did she get for it? Her father's head on the block. She swallowed her anger in that moment. But do you really believe she'll swallow it forever? So yes, the Blacks hold the capital. They hold the throne, the Red Keep, and the Black Cells full of green prisoners. But inside those walls, they're also holding Alicent, a woman who just learned what Rhaenyra's mercy looks like. And that's a problem with no easy answer. Keep that in mind, because it connects to something at the end of this video. Now let's fly north to the biggest castle in Westeros. Because while Rhaenyra was winning the capital, the Greens were taking something too. At the start of the episode, Daemon leaves Harrenhal. Before he goes, he has one last conversation with Alice Rivers, and he basically says what we've all been thinking, he's not even sure what her purpose has been. Her answer is simple. She wants Harrenhal for herself. He smirks and rides off to rejoin his wife. And honestly, this is the best version of Daemon we've ever seen. I covered his return to Dragonstone in my last video, so I won't repeat it here. But look at what he left behind. Because almost as soon as Daemon is gone, Aemond arrives on Vhagar, and he doesn't come to negotiate. He burns his way in and kills poor Simon Strong, one of the few genuinely decent people left on this show. Then something strange happens. One of the Strongs manages to wound him. Aemond, one of the best swordsmen in the story, takes a real hit. And as he's down, bleeding, who appears? Alice Rivers. She doesn't help him, she just watches. And somehow, without lifting a finger, she seems to make things worse. So ask yourself, is Aemond dying? Is this witchcraft or just a bad wound? Either way, the Green's most dangerous dragon rider is now injured, isolated, and completely at the mercy of a woman whose loyalty belongs to no one but herself. I'm making a full breakdown on Alice Rivers this week because there is a lot more going on with her than the show is telling you. Meanwhile, the Riverlands themselves still belong to the Blacks. Daemon's army, the Rivermen and the Winter Wolves, are out there celebrating their victory at the fish feed. But notice something, that army is now partying in a forest without its leader, while Vhagar, the largest dragon alive, just landed at Harrenhal right next door. And there's one more piece moving on this part of the board. Criston Cole and Gwaine Hightower are still marching their army through the Riverlands, heading toward Harrenhal, watching the sky the whole way, terrified of Rhaenyra's dragons. Here's what makes that interesting. They have no idea the capital has fallen. They're marching toward a castle that Aemon just took to fight a war whose entire shape changed behind their backs. What happens when Cole finds out the city he swore to protect belongs to the enemy? That reaction alone is worth tuning in for on Sunday. Now for the storyline that might quietly be the most important one in the entire season. Two men on foot in the middle of nowhere. Aegon and Larys were captured last week by soldiers loyal to Rhaenyra who planned to sell the Burned King for a reward. This week they got lucky. Triarchy raiders, survivors from the Battle of the Gullet who've been pillaging the coast, attacked their captors. In the chaos, Aegon pulled an arrow out of a dead man and used it to kill one of the guards himself. Then he and Larys slipped away. And stop for a second and appreciate the irony here. The Triarchy fleet was brought to Westeros by the Greens. It got shattered at the Gullet fighting for the Greens, and now its scattered survivors, without knowing it, just saved the Green King's life. The Blacks won the battle at sea, and the wreckage of that battle washed ashore and freed their greatest enemy. So where are they going? Larys wants to hide and make for Duskendale, but Aegon refuses. He insists they go to Rook's Rest no matter how long and dangerous the road is, and if you remember Season 2, you know exactly why that matters. Rook's Rest is where Aegon fell. It's where Sunfyre went down. A king with no army, no castle, and no allies is just a man in the mud. But a king reunited with his dragon? That's a completely different war. Rhaenyra is sitting on the Iron Throne right now, but the king she took it from is still alive, still free, and walking toward the one thing that can make him dangerous again. As long as that's true, nothing about her victory is safe. Let's talk about what the Gullet actually cost, because the Blacks won that battle, but the bill was brutal. Jaehaerys Velaryon, Jace, is dead, and his dragon Vermax died with him. Baela brought his body home to Dragonstone. He wasn't just Rhaenyra's son, he was her heir, the future of her entire claim. Every move she makes from now on happens in the shadow of that loss, and if you watched episode 2, you saw that it was grief over Jace, as much as anything, that finally pushed her out of bed and onto that throne. Then there's Corlys, the sea snake. He went overboard during the battle fighting the pirate admiral, and for most of the episode, nobody knew if he was alive. On Driftmark, which the Triarchy sacked, Alan, Adam, and Baela searched for him, and they found him, alive, somehow just winded. Look, the show asks us to accept a lot there, but the bottom line for the war is this. The Blacks still have their greatest naval commander, and the Valyrian fleet, battered as it is, still controls the sea. The Triarchy as an organized navy is broken. What's left of it are raiders burning villages along the coast. So at sea, the Blacks won. On paper. But they traded a prince for it. And now the loneliest person in Westeros, Rhaena. She finally has what she always wanted, a dragon. She rides Sheepstealer, a wild beast no one ever tamed before. There's just one problem. Her big moment at the Gullet went horribly wrong, and her actions helped get Jace killed. Her own family doesn't know it yet. Nobody knows the identity of the Mystery Rider. Nobody except us. So she runs back to the Vale. And Lady Jane Eyre is furious, because Rhaena was supposed to be on a ship to Pentos, protecting Rhaenyra's youngest sons. Instead, she abandoned that duty to chase a dragon. The Vale turns her away. She has nowhere to go. And here's the ticking clock. Rhaenyra has ordered Daemon to find out who the Mystery Rider is. Daemon, Rhaena's own father. Sooner or later, he finds the truth. What does he do when he learns his daughter's secret got Jace killed? And what happens to the two little princes who sailed for Pentos without their protector? 2 open wounds, and episode 3 could rip either one open. Alright? You've seen the map. Now let's count the dragons, because in this war, dragons are the only numbers that truly matter. The Blacks, Syrax with Rhaenyra, Caraxes with Daemon, Moondancer with Baela, Seasmoke with Adam, and the 2 seeds, Hugh on Vermithor, the second largest dragon alive, and Ulf on Silverwing. That's 6 dragons and 6 riders. Plus 1 wildcard, Rhaena on Sheepstealer, flying for no one right now, not even herself. The green's Vhagar, the biggest and oldest dragon in the world, but her rider is lying wounded in Harrenhal. Sunfyre, crippled at Rook's Rest, but his rider is walking toward him right now, and Dreamfire with Rhaena, who has never flown to war and may never want to. 6 against 3. Sounds like the war is already decided, right? Except look closer at those 6. 2 of the black dragons are ridden by Hugh and Ulf, common men, strangers, whose loyalty was bought with promises, not earned with blood. Rhaenyra handed the 2 most powerful weapons in her arsenal to men she barely knows. Remember what I said earlier about enemies inside your own walls? It doesn't just apply to King's Landing. Keep your eye on those 2. That's all I'll say. So let's answer the question. Who's winning this war? On the board, it's not close. The Blacks hold the capital, the throne, the sea, and the Riverlands. They have twice as many dragons. Their enemies are scattered. A king in the mud, a prince bleeding in a haunted castle, an army marching blind. But wars aren't won on the board alone. Count the threats the Blacks can't see. Aegon is 1 reunion away from being a dragon rider again. Aemond, if he survives Alice, still commands the 1 dragon that outmatches anything the Blacks have. And Cole is still out there with an intact army. So here's my verdict. Yes, the Blacks are winning every battle. But look at what those battles are actually producing. The Gullet killed her heir and freed her rival. Taking King's Landing turned her 1 ally on the green side into a grieving daughter with nothing left to lose. Her dragon advantage rests on 2 strangers with no reason to die for her. Every square Rhaenyra takes on the board loads another weapon pointed at her back. That's why I'll say it plainly, Rhaenyra won the throne. But right now, she is losing the war. Because a war isn't won when you sit on the chair. It's won when no one alive can take it from you. And the list of people who can take it from her got longer this week, not shorter. So tell me in the comments, what breaks first? Aegon reaching Sunfyre, the seeds turning, or Alicent's revenge? I read every prediction, and I'll pin the best one after episode 3 airs. If this caught you up, the like button helps more than you know. Subscribe if you want the episode 3 breakdown the night it drops. And if you haven't seen my video on why the throne did not reject Rhaenyra, that's on screen right now.